that. We had technical difficulty. I, Mrs. Lips, forgot to silence my phone. Somebody called, and I think that interrupted our live. But Cuz was getting at something deep. You were saying that you...
Yeah, so I was saying that I'm named after my uncle, which is my father's baby brother, who lost his life in Vietnam. And not only in that, but I was saying I come from a long tradition of military service. And, you know, as time went on, I really enjoyed what I did. I loved the people I worked with and everything like that. But when it comes to our country, I noticed that, you know, when you're out there on the front lines, you're sacrificing for everyone. But here, the people that look like me and you still don't get treated the same as everyone else. And that really started to be unsettling to me. And again, I loved what I did and all that kind of stuff, but it was just something that I've lost sleep over. And again, I have children, and you know, if you and I make the same sacrifice, we should be similar in our results. And that hasn't always been the case in our country. And I get into history and things of that nature. And there was a quote in a movie, and I can't think of the name of the movie right now, but the character's name was Hobbs. And basically, all he wanted to do was join the military. He ended up joining the military. And,
Black character?
Yep.
Okay.
And during his training, they found out that I guess he lied on his application or something to that effect, and he had a criminal record. So they booted him. And the reason that they ended up looking up his information was because he was like a standout. So he was like a cut above everyone else. And they were actually looking into his history to kind of like reward him. And when they did that, they found out about his criminal history. He ended up getting booted. And one of the quotes that I love from that movie was, I think the commanding officer was like, "He who increases knowledge increases sorrow." And I firmly believe that.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases. But I love learning. I love, you know, living life and meeting new people and interacting every day. But, you know, like I was saying, it just, it became more and more difficult to do what I was doing and see what was going on in this country.
You said you come from a family of military background. And when I think of my black sons, you know, and as they get older and they evolve and what I want for them. And I always say, you know, you have these 4 options. I want you to be an entrepreneur. I want you to go to college, take up a trade, or join the military. Because I know of the perks that you have in the military. Knowing what you know and saying what you just said about your military experience and how our sacrifices doesn't always reflect for us what we see others benefiting from. Is that something you would do all over again? And would you maybe suggest that for the next generation?
Instinctively, I want to say yes, because it's so important, and there's so many benefits. If we don't have people that are willing to sacrifice like that, we're not going to have a country. So it's so needed and so important that I say yes, regardless of the sacrifice. But I'd also like to say that between being, you know, at Ground Zero for 9/11 and going to Afghanistan and different experiences, that, and like I was telling you, I'm a preparation kind of dude, so I'm always thinking, you know, 5 steps and 10 years ahead. And there were situations that there's no way I could have known or calculated the actual cost, and some of the shit's been pretty expensive. So that, and again, it's not the same for everybody. Somebody could go through the same thing I went through and not feel the same way. I recently went down to Long Island with my godfather, and both of his parents passed, so we were down there, you know, working on the house and getting the house ready to sell and stuff like that. And in the course of 3 years, he lost both parents, his big brother and his little sister. So he's the only one left.
Damn.
So he got a little emotional while we were at the house, which is to be expected. And then on the way home, you know, we talked all the way down, talked all the way back. It was just he and I. And he was telling me about his brother, who was an interpreter in the Marines in Vietnam. And he had to, because he was an interpreter and spoke fluent Vietnamese, he had to interrogate people. And, you know, my godfather was telling me some of the things that he told him, and he said that one thing that really stood out to me, he said that no human should have to do what he was forced to do. And
as the interpreter.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, that really resonated with me. And then the other thing that he told me that really bothered me was that he told me that he was fine until the last 10 years of his life. And he ended up getting sick, and he started having nightmares and stuff. Well, he got sick, so he died of cancer. He ended up staying with my godparents, with his brother and his wife, you know, and towards the end of life. And my godfather was telling me, he was like, you know, he would have nightmares and he'd wake up screaming. And he said, you know, he told him he was fine his whole life, and the last 10 years is when it just came, you know, some trigger. And you know, I was like, you know, I would think if you're okay, you're okay. You know what I mean? To be that far into your life and that far removed and to still have it be with you, you know, it's serious baggage. And even like the 9/11 stuff I'm still struggling with. And it's really frustrating because that was 20 years ago, and I feel like that's a bag I should be able to put down and walk away from, and that's just not the case. It actually seems to be getting heavier. And which is a weird experience to have, you know. So everybody deals with shit differently. But you know, when he told me that, it was really shocking that he was good his whole life, and then you know the last 10 years, and he said it did end up getting help, and that helped him and things of that nature. But it's just, again, we're talking about life, and this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. It's like so unpredictable, and it's a whirlwind. You really, as much as you plan and prepare, you really can't predict or prepare for shit.
You really can't.
You know
you really can't. And it makes, you know, and that's where I come, is life worth it still? You know what I'm saying? And it might be depending on who we ask. For some people who have suffered from the time they were born to the time they died, they probably like, why the fuck was I here? Who did this to me?
Right.
You know, but it's about the ups, it's about the downs, and we try to work through them. I personally feel like life is precious. It's a purpose for it. Our job is to find our purpose in life. And find a way to make it worth it, if we can. What do you feel like your purpose in life is? Not only as a man, maybe as a black man taking it a step further, because it is a difference.
Yeah.
And people, race, we shouldn't bring race, but it's a fucking difference.
It is.
It is.
It is a difference.
You can speak to either, as a man or as a black man. I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, for both, I'm still trying to figure that out. You know, I've retired from one career. I've got 15 years in another career, and I'm still trying to figure out my purpose. And maybe that changes. I don't know. Right now, the only thing that I really feel obligated to is providing for my children, and trying to set them up for the future, and help them to grow and become the best people they can be. You know, and I want to be the best father I can be and the best husband I can be. I fall short, but that's really what my goal and aspirations are. I want to be a good son. I want to be a good brother, a good cousin. I feel like it's important to have reliable people in your life. And as someone who often feels misunderstood, I think it's extremely important to be empathetic and to try and be understanding for people that feel misunderstood. I'm the guy that ends up talking to the homeless people on the corner, or you know, we go to the grocery store and there's somebody out front, and even if they're not begging, they're just, you can see they're disheveled, whatever the case may go on, they might smell like pee or whatever, and if they speak to me, I'm gonna stand there and have a conversation with them, because the difference between me and them is not as fucking big as it seems.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like we think, oh, I'm here and you're nah, buddy. Nah, we neck and neck.
Yeah.
We neck and neck like
you
a mom.
Remind me of something so funny. I'm always thinking. This brain of mine is always going. I swear it is. And I was thinking, when I think of the purpose of life, you know, we always think like, what's the business we're supposed to start? You know, what's the success we're supposed to have? And I think if you have children, your purpose in life is to be a great parent. And if you don't have children, your purpose in life is to be a great person. Whatever that may be, maybe we're just supposed to be decent human beings. Speak to the homeless person as you would the CEO.
Absolutely.
You know, I had a situation recently where I threw my sister a little surprise get together, and it was in a hotel. Now, I know how to conduct myself. I know how to behave. But, you know, I had an issue when I checked out that they tried to charge me a fee that I knew wasn't a fee they should have assessed, because nothing had occurred in the room. So I sent the GM an email.
Yeah.
And it was very professional, respectful email at first, right? And when her response was something that I felt was less than pleasing. I felt dismissed. I felt like I wasn't seen. I wasn't heard. I didn't like it. And I know I have a bad habit of writing nasty emails when I get angry.
Okay.
And I wrote it, and I still was professional, but it was nasty. It was to the point where it hurt her feelings. I took jabs.
Okay.
And it was almost like, I see why your staff behave the way they do, because you lack certain leadership. I think it was at that point she called my GM and was like, I don't like what she said. And I was told, it's a GM, you got to respect them. And I said, no. I said, they're a person just like I'm a person.
Right.
And I'm not going to respect the GM any more than I'm going to respect your housekeepers.
Right.
And respect is earned, in my opinion. And I think we have to know that everybody is worthy of respect. Even the person I go to Hannaford every day, and it's the same person, and I speak to him because I want him to be seen.
Right.
Hello, good morning, how you doing, take care. Don't even ask him if he needs anything, because he never asked, I'll just give.
Right.
Because he never asked.
Yep.
And I think that's so important for us to do. Now, I tell you, one time I would give money to the person standing on the corner, and I got a call from somebody. He's like, yo, you know that person you give money to every time? They in the hood right now buying weed. Oh, that changed how I was like, you know what? I could be buying my own shit. I'm not, but, what's your thoughts on that? When we give, what is it, once we give, it's none of our business what they do with it, or should we be contributing towards a charity? Ronald McDonald House,
Right.
Places, do we draw the line at some point at being a good person?
Well, I had a recent revelation,
Okay.
and I'm going to go back to religion again, right?
All right.
So, as a good Christian, we're supposed to believe that God has all this stuff on lock, right? Good, bad, ups, downs, all that good stuff. So, if I'm a good Christian, and
Can you hear background noise?
I can,
Okay. I think it's silence now.
okay.
Thank you.
So, if God created all this and has all this planned out, and he decides to make this person homeless, is me helping that person being a good Christian, or is that doubting God's will?
Oh shit! So you think it was God's will for him to be homeless? When you think about it, right?
If that's what you follow, if that's what you follow,
oh God!
Should we be up here with this? Pray for Paris and all these other kind of things when these natural disasters happen and there's school shootings and all that kind of stuff? Is that God's will, or what is that? You know what I'm saying? And if that's God's will, who the hell am I?
Devil.
Who am I to be questioning that?
Yeah.
And if you say it's the devil, then the devil is more powerful than God. That's something like what am I supposed to subscribe to?
Right. Yeah.
I have a lot of questions.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Which one is it?
Yeah.
And who am I? Because I'm just me at the end of the day.
Right. God is almighty. This is what God intended for the world. So how am I supposed to go against that? I think that's a segment where you make me think. It would be nice to have somebody with that spiritual, religious background. I mean, I don't think there's answers for anything.
Right. Okay. So if there's no answers for that, then why do we shun people for not being X, Y, and Z?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just feel like that's all looking down your nose and not and really not being a good human.
So we are parents, both of us.
Yeah.
Will we ever be okay with our children sleeping in our basement, playing video games all day, not having a job? Is there a lack of productivity God's will, or is that a product of our parenting?
Right. So exactly.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, if that's God's will, then why should I say anything? But at the same time, that's not what I want for my children.
Yes.
And that's not the way I'm raising them up. So it's almost like you have to pick a side sometimes, and people like to walk this thin gray line and teeter-totter on both sides, whatever works for them at the time, whatever situation they're in.
Yeah.
And I think that's bullshit. I think that, granted, things can change and everybody's, your impression and your thoughts and feelings or whatever you follow, you're entitled to change that as you go throughout your life. But all this, cherry picking and using the things that benefit me when it benefits me and discarding everything else, I'm not with that.
Yeah.
Nope. If this is what you're gonna use, just use the Bible. If this is the book that you're gonna go by, don't try and give me page 115 and 22. You better give me all of them. All of them. Live by them.
There's a lot of people who live by the Bible and the Quran and the books of religion. And when you were talking about the church and how it's fake, and you see pastors preach faithfulness and honor your wife and honor your husbands, but they're having sexual relations outside their marriage, it is easy to doubt the leader. And that's why personally, I don't feel like I need to go to a building to have a relationship with my God, the person I believe in. I feel like that's a interpersonal thing, interspiritual thing, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a community thing. Because I live next door to a woman who I thought was the most evil person in the world, and I went to a church, and she's sitting there clapping and praising. No way do I want to sit in the pew next to somebody that I know does the contrary outside of these doors. So it is a lot of...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's tough for people because when you talk to something that they believed for so long and that they're so ingrained in, they take it as a personal attack and they get very defensive. And when they get defensive, they can't hear nothing you're saying anyway, and they're not trying to see your perspective. And it's a tough way to live when you don't subscribe to that. And I went through something maybe spring or beginning of summer, and I was having an emotional time, and I went to my parents and I talked to them, and one of the things my father suggested was that I go back to church, and that's when I told my parents to their face that I don't. You be spiritual, do whatever you want, but I told my parents, I said, I don't believe in religion because I don't like the business of religion. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with you following that or anything like that. But the business aspect of it, I don't like it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So if I'm out here tithing, and my pastor is driving a Benz or a Bentley, I got a problem with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now if he's driving a Hyundai, and we're doing for the community, then that's just like me giving money to the person in front of the store that you reference. But I'm not saying you shouldn't get compensated for a job, but there's levels to stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't like the business aspect of it, and that's just as a numbers guy. Again, I'm very calculative. That's something that just doesn't sit well with me. And I'm really into community and finances, and it just doesn't sit well with me.
And I like that you said that, because I feel like 10% of a monetary tithe weekly doesn't compare to the 100% of the kindness I have in my heart and do on a daily.
Right.
So to me, it's like I'm tithing 10 times as much as the person who's just contributing money. But are you being a good person?
Right.
Are you snaring at the homeless person when you walk out of your church?
Right.
Or the lady who walks in looking like she just left the street corner in the
Right.
morning? You know what I'm saying? So yeah, there is...
Right. So if I'm not tithing, but I'm coaching youth basketball,
Right.
and I'm the male figure for a lot of these young men that don't have dads in the home and things of that nature, is that more beneficial than me tithing 10% of my income? I believe so.
I agree.
You know what I mean? So it's
agree.
like there's trade-offs for things.
When we think of life, we're considered middle age now. We probably got just as many years ahead of us as we do behind us. God willing, we may not have as many ahead of us. I mean, God's will, we may not have as many ahead of us as we do behind us. When we reach this age, I think we gain a certain level of wisdom and understanding of how the world is working. And when you look at life and you imagine the future, do you see life getting better or life getting worse?
For me or in general?
In general.
So the average age for male death, I believe, is 68 years old. So at like 35, you pass the halfway point. So I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. The one thing that I do believe with generations is that you and I are going to more than likely think that our children's generation are screwing the world up.
Yeah.
And our parents probably think that about us.
Right.
Because you always think your generation is the top of the world and you guys got it all figured out and you're doing things the right way.
Sure.
So when you say life getting better or worse, it's like a twofold, because I think instinctively I'm automatically going to think that it's getting worse because that's not my generation running things anymore. But at the same time, depending on technology and overall happiness, I would like to think that things are getting better. However, I think things are going to get worse before they get better, and I think we've got some tough times ahead of us.
Do you see us getting through this pandemic anytime soon?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do, absolutely do. I think this is just part of a natural I don't want to call it natural selection, but it's something that happens. Like there's bugs, there's pandemics, there's all sorts of stuff that's happened all throughout history. Just like, you know, and I'm not trying to jump off the topic, but even like with global warming, I mean, what was the ice age? Was that global cooling? What caused that? It's just like it's shit that happens, and I'm not saying speed the process up, but at the same time, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, there's global warming, and if we don't do something about it, we're all going to die. We're all going to die anyway.
We're all going to die anyway.
You start dying when you're born, so what? I'm not stressing out over that. And again, I try to conserve water and things of that nature, but I'm not going to go crazy about it. Like if I want to go swimming in the swimming pool, I'm going swimming.
Yeah.
It is what it is. You know what I mean? But it's just I do firmly believe that things in the near future are going to get really bad, and then they'll get better. There's a saying that bad times make strong men make good times make weak men, and it's a cyclical thing. You know what I mean? It's just a part of life.
It is a part of life. And, you know, when I think about it, I worry that my grandchildren and their children, I worry what life will be like for them. You know, I'm not too keen on this whole metaverse thing. It doesn't sit well with me at all. Maybe because I think about how consumed people are in technology right now.
Absolutely.
And that it really takes you away from reality, what's in front of you, the moment. Just enjoying that time and space that you have with the people around you. And I just feel like this whole metaverse thing is another way to not improve life, but to make the life you have better, in the sense that it's basically taking away your reality and putting you in a world that is make-believe, so to speak.
Yeah, and I to piggyback on that, I feel like it's taken the place of drugs and alcohol when they're used to abuse. And you know, when there's people that are addicts to something, I don't necessarily think they're addicts to a substance. I think they're addicts to escape from reality. And that's something that the metaverse is going to provide. And the more we do that, the less we're going to be able to function in day-to-day life and be able to interact with each other. I was recently listening to a song by Gil Scott-Heron, and it's Home is Where the Hatred Is. And there's a line in there where he's like, he says, home is where the needle marks, talking about shooting up. He said, home is where the needle marks try to heal my broken heart. And again, that was already something I believed, and here this guy is talking, you know, and this song is decades old, and he's talking about it, really escaping reality and trying to escape pain by seeking substances, and I feel like people are going to do that with the metaverse. There's already people addicted to video games.
Yes.
So this is just going to be, it's going to be probably 100 times worse if it really catches on, and the people that are creating it, not necessarily that they have malicious intent, you know, but it's all about the mighty dollar, and so they're going to make money off of it, and there's going to be people that are going to suffer from it.
Yes, and funny you say that. I read a lot of articles, and I just read one that said that, maybe a few weeks ago, but someone paid $2 million. $2 million, money that probably some of us will never see, ever, for virtual land in this metaverse. So you know, if they're investing that type of money, they plan to receive it back. So now we're all walking around with goggles, and we buying up property, and we got mansions, and we got Ferraris, and we got Benzes in the fake world. Yeah. And it looks good. That's going to be the new flex, I think, now. So it's like they know that. They're anticipating that, and they're already cashing in on the potential of that.
Well, it's been a couple of years now, and I've been hearing this thing that they've been saying, you know, the higher ups, so to speak, are going to be saying that at the end of the day, we're going to own nothing, but we're going to be happy. And I'm like, bullshit.
Yeah, who's defining happiness?
Exactly. And so the metaverse thing, I believe I saw the same article, and I think that guy bought land next to Snoop, because Snoop has a metaverse, and from my understanding, he's making big bank on it. So that's where people get into, you know, making money off of things like that. And again, like you said, if you're going to invest that kind of money, it could go bust, but they know what they're doing, and they do a lot of research, and they use a lot of our information and algorithms and all that kind of stuff to see, what people like. And, you know, it's kind of like making this the reality, or what we think is reality, the real life, so miserable that all you want to do is escape. So if you're going to escape from this metaverse,
the new drug.
And this is part of the thing, like with the lockdowns and stuff, where even like in Australia, they're like chasing people down and forcibly vaccinating them. And the vaccinated people are still getting sick. So I'm like, what are we doing? at the end of the day.
It definitely doesn't make sense. I wasn't in a rush to get vaccinated.
Mm-hmm.
I chose to get vaccinated because they're making it so that if you're not, you can't do certain things.
Mm.
I like to travel. My child likes to play sports. You know, I like to go out to eat. I like to do things that bring me happiness in this life that I have, where I'm still trying to find my purpose.
Right.
So it's like, if I got to get vaccinated to play the game, then that's what I'm gonna do.
And that's the bigger, not to cut you off, but that's the bigger question. Why do you have to get vaccinated to do what you want to do? You know what I'm saying? And I don't know if you just saw, but this past week the Supreme Court ruled that companies with more than 100 employees can't mandate the vaccine. Mm-hmm. They said it's government overreach. So I guess the idea behind it was to try and keep the companies up and running. So they didn't want them losing employees. So they wanted to force them or mandate the vaccine. But it's like, in that, what kind of culture are we creating here where you don't have freedom to even say what goes in and out of your body anymore? You know, and I see a lot of these arguments and people like to post stuff like, oh, well, if you eat McDonald's nuggets, what's your problem with the vaccine? It's like, that's none of your goddamn business. If I want to eat nuggets and not drink Hennessy, then that's me. Right. Be like, oh, well, if you eat nuggets, you should drink Hennessy. That don't make no sense. Yeah. Makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah. And again, it's me, not you. Right, because they're trying to take one thing and make it justify something else. Absolutely. I'm like, that's a straw argument. Mm-hmm. So
I agree. I think we all have the free will. And we're all at will to do what it is that we want. And I too believe that we shouldn't be forced to do anything. What about, though, when that mandate is a difference between you being able to take care of your family and you not being able to take care of your family?
That's what I think as a culture, not necessarily as a culture, but as a world. And I might get censored for saying this, but that's where I think we need to stand up and stand together. And whether I'm vaccinated or not, my position is you should have the choice. And this is part of both of my careers and my military experience. Like, I'm not, I'll give you Colin Kaepernick. Everybody was all up in arms about that. And I don't agree with what he did only because he did it at work. I feel like if you felt that strongly, you should have done it on your own time. Like, you should be out here in these streets. And maybe he is, but you do it on your own time. Okay. You know what I mean? Separate. But my thing is, I fought for him to have the right to kneel if he wants to kneel, whether I agree with it or not. You know what I'm saying? And I support his decision and freedom to do that. That's what I'm about. You know what I mean? Just like people go back and forth on abortion and things of that nature, I'm pro-choice for everything.
Pro-choice for everything.
Whatever works for you, boo, you do you.
Yeah. Exactly.
If you're not hurting me, do you.
Did you take, as a military man, did you take his kneeling offensively?
I didn't, because, again, I fought for his right and freedom to be able to do that.
So free speech.
Absolutely.
Free speech.
Absolutely.
So what we got? The KKK.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't get busted upside the head, but I'm saying that you're free to say whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe.
I wouldn't come to my house with that bullshit. Right. But if y'all want to go down the corner, go have the
corner. And march about it, right. I agree, too. I look at it as, you know, people should be free to think and feel how they want to feel, as long as their actions now doesn't become an issue for me. Yeah. Like, you know, if you're going to pick it, but don't be sticking burning crosses in my lawn. You know, that becomes a direct impact. Right. And I feel like so I was having a conversation with somebody at work, and we talked about white supremacy, right? And I was like, people should, if they believe that they are the top of the fucking mountain, why not? Let them believe that. We should believe it too. I believe it. I believe I'm the bomb and nobody is above me, you know? So why can't a group of people feel like they are God's gift to the earth? That's their belief. Let them have it. And I want to know who feels that way, because now I know how to deal with you and interact with you, as opposed to suppressing those views. Absolutely. Because now we don't know who the hell we're getting. Right, because now
you're doing shit behind closed doors and all that kind of stuff. And I'd rather know my enemy anyway. You know what I mean? Absolutely. And, you know, just talking about freedoms and government and things of that nature, you know, they recently, just last year, they admitted that, I don't know how many people saw this, but the government admitted that aliens are real. Mm-hmm. And this has been a hot button topic for years, and foil hat wearing motherfuckers. Where do they dwell? Right, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So now they've released that the information is real. And again, when you start trying to restrict people's freedoms, you run a slippery slope. And I don't want to tie two things together, but just to get back to trusting the government, so to speak. Yeah. You know, these are people that lied to us about UFOs for X amount of years, and then all of a sudden they decide to, you know, there's these documents that became, whatever they call, I forget the terminology, but when they're like restricted or whatever. Classified. Yep. Mm-hmm. So they unclassified these documents after years, and you find out what you thought was the truth was not the truth. Mm-hmm. Martin Luther King was killed by the government. Mm-hmm. Malcolm X killed by the government. You know what I'm saying? So right. It's like, and these are the people you want me to trust.
Yeah. Right. And it's like, why restrict this information? Why not tell us that UFOs are real? Like, what is the harm in us having this knowledge and sharing that with the people?
Right. Well,
I don't...
You think everybody's going to go crazy? You know what I mean? Like,
they're going to go crazy regardless. It's not going to be that one thing that sends them over the edge.
Right.
I just think sometimes we're too secretive.
Absolutely.
And we don't share enough.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's no transparency.
No transparency.
Nope. Just like where your tax dollars go.
Yeah.
End up in Iraq, end up wherever. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like we're like, I think of growing up, you know, children should be seen and not heard. Do as I say, not as I do type thing. Do you think that's where we may start to fail the generation behind us, is because we're not being as transparent? Like people say, you know, if you're going through a situation with your spouse, you don't tell the children about it. But I feel like, how can children learn to deal with adversities and deal with issues in interpersonal relationships if their parents are shielding them from it, and then they now are adults and have to deal with it? Yeah. I feel like too often we shield and we should be sharing.
Yeah, I do feel like there's adult topics and there's child topics, and even if you have to get a point across, you can do it without certain details until they reach a certain age. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that children should be involved in adult relationships mm-hmm. in any way, shape, or form, because they're not ready for it. You know what I mean? It's like it's a different mental space. And I listen to a guy that does relationship podcasts, and ultimately what happens is a lot of people get a lot of bad information from one side, and they take that and run with it. Mm-hmm. And back to the alien thing, you know, for years people have picked on and made fun of people that believe that there were possibly aliens out there, and now the government says there are, and we've known. So it's like, did you go back and apologize to all these people that you may feel like shit because probably not. Mm-hmm. Right, because you're too good for that, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's the kind of stuff where I don't like it, and I don't agree with it, and I try not to be that kind of hypocritical person. Mm-hmm. But I definitely feel like our children should have a reality when it comes to finances and things of that nature. But like, say I'm going through something with my spouse, if I'm not busting a move, I don't feel like I should be having my children in the middle of what's going on between us. If I'm on my way out the door, then that's one thing. Then that's a conversation I need to have. You know, we need to have as a family, mm-hmm. both adults and the children. But if I'm not going nowhere, what the hell are my children going to know what's going on behind closed doors for?
Right.
You know
now they're privy to something, right. And there's no change.
Right. That's like me telling them every time we're intimate. What's the purpose of that?
Right.
Like, okay, it's natural. It's a part of life. It's something that you're going to do at some point in your life. But mm-hmm. I'm not giving you updates on everything. Like, y'all got a good one last night, my boy. You're going to be putting in work. Yo, love her. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you wouldn't have that conversation, then just chill till they're at the point where they...
What's that point, though? What's the point? Do we go from shielding and not sharing to keeping it real? Because children are maturing way faster, and if they ain't seeing it and hearing it from us, yep. They got those devices.
I'm glad you brought that up. So, sometimes the time or the clock gets sped up a little bit. I had a situation with my son when he was in grade school. He's 8 years old, and somebody exposed himself in school. Mm. So he and I, like, they sent a note home or whatever. So he and I ended up needing to have a conversation about some things that I don't feel I should have been having with my 8-year-old. And I was really upset about it. Mm-hmm. But because of something that took place at school, you know, outside of my control, I had to talk to him or have a talk with him about something that we really shouldn't have been talking about at 8 years old.
I don't know, cuz I feel like that's the time to have these conversations. I feel like no matter how young, good touch, bad touch. We have to talk to our children about it.
This wasn't good touch, bad touch.
This was just exposure, too. Yeah. But I feel like that, too, opens your child's brain to knowing what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, mm-hmm. regardless of the age. And I feel like a lot of times, you know, growing up, our parents don't talk to us about, you know, people who shouldn't be around our children. And it's like we're hush-hush about molestation. But, you know, we're more vocal about other things. And I just think sometimes we could be doing a disservice when we underestimate the value of having discussions with our children, no matter the age.
Right.
And I do wholeheartedly agree with you, though, that, you know, there is age-appropriate discussions. But I just think in this day and age, life just starts to hit hard early.
Yep.
And we just got to kind of open that dialogue.
Punches, And that's another thing, you know, kind of when we were talking about the different generations or what have you, where the exposure that the children have now and the access they have is like light years ahead of the access that we had at that age. So you're absolutely right. And
they're watching porn at 5 on the phone.
And, you know, so I'm open to kind of speeding up the process or what have you. But, you know, all right, so you have to think about it like this. Back in the old days, a girl could be getting pregnant or getting married at 13, 14 years old.
And it was the norm.
So if you're trying to wait till your daughter's 13 or 14 to talk about the birds and the bees, you're kind of behind the curve. What I do with my children is, like I said, that situation at school kind of, I try to gauge my children based off of my experience and knowledge and what I'm experiencing with them. So if I feel like there's certain things going on or there's something that I need to be concerned with or we're at a level, then I'm going to have that conversation. I'll give you, again, bringing up my son, he asked me one time where, and this was after that talk when he was 8, but he asked me after that where babies come from. And I told him, I think I told him some BS about the stork or something like that at the time. Because he really didn't know what was going on. And like 2 years later, he asked me again, and we're at a different level at that point. So I said, I told him about, basically told him about birth, talked to him about vaginal birth versus C-sections, things of that nature. So I had a little spiel talk to him, and when I was done, I was like, you have any questions? And he was like, no. And he never asked me about where babies come from again. So, you know, again, gauging my children, whatever I said to him at that first conversation, it was like a pacifier at the time, but it didn't answer his question. So we came back to it. And the way that I try and kick it to my children is I'm like, you have to, if you love me, you have to trust me enough to give you the best information possible. And I said, if you have a question on something, you have to be, no matter what it is, you have to be comfortable enough to come to me versus going to somebody else, because you're not going to get the right answer from another knucklehead the same age as you. I'd rather have you come to me and I'll give it to you real. You know what I'm saying? And I said, you have to trust me enough to tell me the truth. I said, if I don't know the truth about a situation, I can't help you. And if you don't, and if I can't help you, then I failed as a parent. So I said, I need you to be honest with me, even if it's an uncomfortable situation. I'm here for you. So
at 8, he might have heard from his friend's big brother exactly where babies come from. Came to daddy and got the pacifier answer. I think that didn't build the trust. That he circled back like, oh, I remember having this conversation. So what do you think it would behoove us to keep it on it from the jump, or still gauge it maybe based on their maturity and where they're at?
Well, I had some lead-up questions, so I saw where his baseline was at before I answered. So when he asked me, I started asking him questions, and one of the things was I asked him if he knew what sex was, and he said yes. And he said, so I was like, what's sex? I have him tell me what he knows, and then I go from there. So when I asked him what sex was, he told me it was a man and woman laying in the bed naked. And I said, okay. I said, you know, Daddy sleeps naked, right? He says, yeah. I said, so every time I go to sleep, you think I'm having sex? And he was like, oh. So I just, you know, so I kind of spun it on him based off the information that he had. And this was that same, that stork conversation, you know what I mean? And then we circled back to it when he must have gathered a little more information, and I gave him a more detailed answer, you know what I mean? Like, it is.
I realized kids' curiosity hit quick. Like, I remember hearing a story from my father that my little brother started inquiring about death. Realized that we're not here forever, and at some point we die. And that was like around the age of 5. And I remember my 4-year-old granddaughter, her mother was having her younger sister, and she goes, but I don't want mommy to die. Because she's thinking you're going to have a baby, and you, like, I don't know why she had it in her head that her mother giving birth meant that her mom could possibly die. But that their minds start really going. I think they start understanding the concept that life isn't forever. And things are born and things die. And it's just like so much that is thrown at them.
So I gotta say there's differences with individuals and there's differences with my children. So my daughter is want to say young-minded, because she doesn't act immature, but she's very much
age appropriate.
Age appropriate. She's very much age appropriate, and not that my son wasn't age appropriate, but my son, he's a different dude. He's ahead of his time. To the point where I've had conversations with him about, you know, because we experienced some of the same things, and I've had conversation with him about that. He's going to feel alone, and he's going to feel misunderstood, because where he's at right now, the people, his peers that are around him, he's in the stratosphere. And not to belittle anybody else's children or say that they're not smart or whatever, but he's with the shits.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're gonna struggle, because where you're at, the people you're around, that's not your level. I'm like, you're light years ahead,
so he
bro.
probably
So
got to hang with older people or people with a mature mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So he'll come to me with these topics, and we'll talk, and I'm just blown away. Like, he's really, you know.
But he's at that age too, where you can almost have any conversation with
absolutely.
him and not sugarcoat shit.
But this has been a few years that this has been going on. You know what I mean? So we're talking. It's probably before the pandemic. So we're talking 3 or 4 years that this has been going on. And he's 16 now. So probably about 12, 13, I started saying, yo, this guy right here, he's got.
But I love that he comes to you.
He's got
with
some shit with him.
How many children think maybe like your child think, but don't come to their parents, where the parents don't have that open door.
Right.
They're like, damn, my child feel like they can't come to me and talk to me about these worldly things or these confusing things or these touchy subjects or things that make them uncomfortable. And I think that's unfortunate, you know, I do.
But this is going back to gauging your child. So the more that he opens up to me, the more that I'm willing to feed him. And when I feed him and I satisfy his desire, I think that's when he realizes, well, this is a good source of information.
But we talk about cycles. The more he feeds you, the more you open up. I mean, the more you open up to him, the more you can feed him. But what if he never feels comfortable even coming to you with it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
There could be a blockage, and I think, how can we? Parenting is so tough.
It is. It's
so tough. And I was thinking too the other day about, damn, you got people who have biological children. They aren't in their lives, but yet they're playing an excellent stepdaddy to children that they didn't even give birth to.
I synced it.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's like,
but again, I could have relatives that are the same distance blood-wise away from me as you, and we're not going to have the same conversation, or we're not going to have the same attachment or understanding or relationship that you and I have. And our relationship developed older.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So it's like things just happen. You know what I mean? Sometimes you gravitate to different people for different reasons, and unfortunately, sometimes you outgrow people. And sometimes you go into situations.
But as a parent, you should never outgrow your biological child.
No,
I don't want to see you being a better step parent than you are a fucking biological parent.
But what if you and your biological child just don't vibe like that? And what if there's a barrier that you can't get through? I'll give you, like, what if the other parent...
I'm cringing. I know where you're going with this.
I'm just saying, like, and I'm not saying don't have that relationship with your child and don't fight for that relationship. But there's conversations I can have, and even though there's an age difference, there's conversations I can have with my son that I can't have with my daughter, or vice versa, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes, and it could even be a difference with sex. But sometimes, you know what I mean? So sometimes there's just different barriers, and people are on different communication levels or different understanding, and maybe that relationship just hasn't fostered yet. That would actually help that relationship grow. I have one of my best friends. I won't say his name, but one of my best friends growing up thought that, in short words, he thought that his father was a piece of shit. And growing up, because he suffered from an addiction. And now as an adult and a parent himself, he's remembering all these lessons that his father taught him and all these conversations that we had. And now he realizes that, addiction aside, his father was a dope-ass father, and he gave him a hell of a lot of gems. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, the only people that can gauge whether, and again, we all want to be good parents, like you said, that's our obligation, but the only people that can gauge whether we're a good parent or not is our children. And we can't make that decision for them.
Right.
No one can. And you may think I'm a piece of shit dad right now because I didn't let you go to that party, but when you have a child, or 5 years from now, whatever, you're like, yo, my dad really was with the shits. He gave me the, you know what I mean? He really had my best
I see that a lot.
So, you know, and again, you know, you brought up having,
Like, can you imagine the bond you have with your dad?
Yeah.
Can you imagine not having that with him and knowing that he has it with a child that ain't even his? Can you fucking imagine? It's tough. It's heartbreaking, especially as somebody who always wanted that bond with their parents.
it is. But see, I grew up. My older siblings have a different dad, but my dad raised them.
But your older sibling's dad, was he a better dad to stepkids than he was to them?
I have no idea what that man was.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, as far as, well, you're talking about different siblings, so you're saying that my dad should have been a better dad to me than he was to my older brother and sister?
Nope. What I'm saying is, if there's a guy who has biological children with someone else,
Yep.
he's not in their line. He's not in those biological children line. But yet he meet a girl who has other children.
Right.
And you fucking taking them shopping, you going to amusement parks. But you ain't doing that with your own biological children.
Do his biological children want to do that with him?
What child don't want to spend time with their parents? When you're a child, you don't know. We talking about babies into, infants into toddlers into children. What children don't want to bond with their natural parents?
Okay, then I'll ask you, will their mother allow it?
That's a different kind of problem, but that don't mean that the dad doesn't fight for their child. That's when you get the law involved. I feel like if that mother is being that bitter, and she's not allowing that man to be a part of that child's life, then homeboy, I'm gonna need you to go above and beyond. I'm gonna need you to get 2 and 3 jobs, get you a lawyer, and fight that bitch in court. I'm gonna need you to go to family court, fill out those petitions, and do what you gotta do, because it don't stop with her.
I know somebody that did that, and his daughter was in his life for a bit, and it still ended up falling apart because the mother and grandmother actually made it so difficult that he couldn't even do it financially. They made it like anything that you could think of being an issue, they made it that way. And he was with her for like 3 years, and he got to the point where he was facing bankruptcy and everything, and he just couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So at what point do you have to...
You exhaust all possibilities.
You know what I'm saying? You have to save yourself, because if you end up on the corner, you can't do. You ain't helping nobody. He tried. Absolutely, he tried.
Not every man tries.
Should it be that difficult to love your child?
It should not be that difficult, especially if there's a parent blocking it. Shame on that individual.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? But if your child is not connecting with you, I think that's an obligation on your part to work and do the work that you need to in order to make it happen.
But sometimes you're not in a position where you can do that because the other parent is blocking all that, and if the other parent has 24/7, okay. So if the parent is, you're dead wrong.
You're dead wrong.
You're dead wrong.
Yes,
and even if you guys don't have a relationship like that, you could still be in their life. I mean, again, like you said, if they're that little, they're gonna want to be with daddy no matter what.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but if they're not, and they get to the point where they start making decisions on their own, or
exactly, I think that's a different story.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know we're coming up on, because we had to restart it, so we gained an extra 15 minutes.
Okay.
So we're down to the last 10 minutes. But we started this segment talking about love the life you live versus live the life you love.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you, are you loving the life you live, or are you living the life you love?
I've been trying to love the life I live, but I want to live the life I love.
And what's stopping you from doing it?
A lot. Different relationships, talked about societal norms, and self-esteem. And I don't want to say I don't like change, because I actually thrive when things are chaotic, but I'd much rather, I think of myself as water, and what I've said in the past is just don't make waves. You know what I mean? I don't want people in my life making waves, because I'm a pond. No water coming in, no water going out. I'm just chilling.
Okay,
I'm just chilling. Don't go splashing in my shit. And in that, I also try not to splash myself, but sometimes you gotta throw some buckets out there or something, or catch a fish or something. So it's a challenge for me, but I definitely like status quo, and I want to be accepted. I want to be understood, and a lot of times I just want to be left the fuck alone. To be me.
To be you.
Simple as that.
I think you should be allowed to be you.
I
think you should do whatever you have to do to be you, because there's no one who can live your life better than you. There's a song I did in chorus. I'll never forget it. And it was a song, but it reads as poetry to me. And I think I'll read it to the audience next time I do a video. And it's called Why Am I Me? Why was I born when I was born? Who was I born to be? Why am I living the life that I'm living? And it was just, and it always read from 12.
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that song. And it makes me wonder, am I living the life I love, or am I loving the life I live? And I have made a decision to live the life I love. And that's going to come with sacrifices. It's going to come with some pain.
Yeah.
It's going to come with some hurt. But at the end of the day, I have to do what I have to do for me.
Yeah.
Because this is the life I was given, and I have to live it for me, not for anybody else.
Word. That's a fact.
Yeah.
I think that for me too, being such a planner, when I get to the point where, where I'm at right now, I've done a lot of planning for, and I think it makes it difficult when I get the curveballs. But when I was in high school, I hung up a poem on my door, and it said, basically, the long and short of it was, within chaos, there is opportunity to take advantage of the chaos, and I feel like throughout my life, I've thrived in the chaos. Even if I try to plan to avoid it, when it comes, I make it work. So that's just, where I'm at right now. I'm kind of like, I'm in the chaos right now.
Yeah. And a lot of us are living in chaos. And some of us succumb to it, and some of us make it work. We do what we have to do. My prayer for you is that you find your way through the chaos, and you come out on top, and you come out living the life you love. I see loving the life we live as a beautiful thing too, but I don't see us living it to our best potential.
Yeah.
So to our audience, we hope you enjoyed the segment with Cousin Charles. Apologize about the technical difficulties. Hopefully we were able to bounce right back and get you guys some content that you can walk away thinking about, things that make you wonder if you're living the life you love or loving the life you live. That wasn't the moral of our story. That wasn't the title of our segment, but I think it's a beautiful way to end it.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to say? Last words?
Yes.
Yeah.
The only thing that you can't get back is time. So when you take time out of your life to spend with someone, you can't put a value on it. So everybody that's watching, I just want to say thank you for sharing this time with us and taking the time to listen and support Vibe.
Thank you, because they could be anywhere in the world. They chose to be here with us.
Amen.
All right. Peace, y'all. Take care. Be well, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.